On a cold October morning, deep in the forgotten valley of an Appalachian forest, a man named Caleb disappeared. No storm. No search party. No signs. Just vanished into mist, while his friends swore he was only a few steps ahead until he wasn't. 42 hours later, Caleb returned. Alone. His shoes were torn with mud, his hands trembling, and his eyes were vacant. But he didn't come back confused. No. He came back knowing details never made public. About something that happened in that forest decades ago. He said he had heard voices, whispers not of the future, but of the past. In his delirious state, he recounted the names of two teenagers who had disappeared in the same stretch of woods in 1979. Their bodies were never found. Their case went cold. But Caleb described the scene in acute detail: the overgrown path, the rusted knife, the precise location where the soil still feels wrong. He knew details only someone involved could have known. But Caleb hadn't even been born then. Doctors diagnosed him with a dissociative fugue. Said he'd had a psychological break. But his memories, they weren't fractured. They were too linear, too vividly coherent. He mentioned numbers carved into a tree. Investigators returned to the scene and found it. A series of 7 digits, an old telephone number, in a part of the forest none of them had ever stepped into before. Caleb described it in his dreams, before any photo was shown to him. Did the forest give him something? Or did it take something in return? In the months that followed, Caleb began to lose pieces of himself. He became withdrawn, his friends said. Obsessed, eyes always scanning the treetops like he expected something or someone. Late at night, he'd scratch patterns into his walls, symbols his sister later found matched logbook entries from the town's decommissioned ranger station. When they went through those dusty records, they found something chilling. One of the teenagers who vanished in '79 had written the exact same insignias in his school notepad before he disappeared. No one had connected the symbols before Caleb's return. That's when local legend turned darker. Residents started to whisper about memory echoes, a phenomenon reported by old hikers and moonshiners. They spoke of a place in the woods where time folds, where human thoughts bleed into the trees, where trauma lingers and waits for someone willing enough or broken enough to receive it. Caleb had received it. And it was changing him. Only one photograph was ever taken of him after that incident. Blurry, taken through a window. He's seen standing in his mother's backyard at 3 a.m., barefoot in the frost, whispering up toward the branches. His breath fogs the air, but there's no wind. No sound. And then, he was gone again. This time for good. They never found Caleb's body. But 3 years later, hikers once again heard whispering in the forest. A teenage boy from another town went missing during a school camping trip in the exact same area. When they found him 2 days later, unharmed, dehydrated, and shaking, he kept repeating a phrase: "It wasn't mine. It was his. I gave it back." The boy had never met or heard of Caleb. You can call it a coincidence. You can say it's trauma, amplified by isolation and fear. But every investigator who's stepped into that part of the forest comes out changed. Some with a mild tremor. Some unable to sleep. And one ranger, who quit after 25 years, simply said, "There are places in this country where the ground speaks. You just have to bleed enough for it to answer." What if memory doesn't die with us? What if it lingers, rooted in soil, clinging to trees, begging for someone, anyone, to carry the burden? And what if you were the one chosen? Follow the quiet signal. Some stories are buried on purpose.